All right, so this is our part 2 of our conversation. Interrupted. Will be easier to upload to my channel in 2 videos. Yeah, so we were talking about how to bring our voices through, our voices of guidance, really, and following that, and you know how we keep on doing the healing work, because what I'm hearing, you know, most of you sharing, you're healers, you know, you're doing much more than healing yourself, you know, you're working in the larger field of life, you know. So that's definitely also part of my calling, you know, the healing of the global, the healing of the personal is part of healing the global and contributing to the shifting that is required on the planet right now, that we are all kind of witnessing. You know, it's kind of a privileged time to be alive, actually, for all of us, you know, to be able to witness this, you know. Yeah.
Well, Aline, you mentioned chaos theory and how before a major shift, there's usually chaos, and we feel that, we sense that definitely around the world right now, the chaos and the unrest. And I was thinking about the tipping point, and how when we bring 10,000 together on that same energetic level, we'll reach that tipping point. And to me, the feminine is really coming out much more strongly, and we're actually encouraging that feminine side to come out in everyone, not just in women. We're seeing that in men as well. And when you get away from mainstream television, you see a lot more real feelings coming out, and men feeling comfortable with that. And then if you go back and look at mainstream television, there's even some things in mainstream television that have changed so much over the years, where men are not these stoic, unemotional beings, but they are showing emotion, they are showing feelings, and they're showing that softer, gentler side of themselves. So I do think that as we continue to support the field in bringing that feminine energy out, that we're going to see even more men shifting and bringing that feminine energy into their lives as well. And for me, that takes some of the pressure off of having to compete in a masculine world, because I don't think in a linear masculine fashion. I know I'm definitely circular. Mm-hmm. And when I run across people who are still operating in that, I have to take that moment to adjust to it. It's not something where I can just flip a switch and all of a sudden I'm in that masculine mentality. I have to consciously put myself into a mindset to be able to communicate on that level. And so even communication can become chaotic when we're bringing in the more feminine. And the masculine side is still saying, oh, well, you've got to communicate in this linear fashion. And I don't think that it's going to be working well much longer.
Well, but you know, at the same time, Deborah, we have to look at realistically at what's being handed down to us, especially in the United States, where we're getting where what is being funneled from the top is becoming more and more chaotic and more disorganized and more not what you see is not what you get, what you hear
Right.
is not, you know, it's like, as they call it, alternate facts, alternative facts, which is really interesting. As someone who is originally a journalist, to me it was very important to check every resource, every source, and make sure that everything is factual when you're reporting on something. But in this day and age, it seems as if everything is being fabricated. And it's creating even more chaos. But you know, speaking on the individual basis, the greater the breakdown, the greater the breakthrough. And so, you know, and that's something I learned for myself and whenever I've been in any group, that the greater the breakdown, the greater the breakthrough. And so, as you were saying, Eileen, you know, this is a time, it's an incredible time to be born, to be working, to be living, to be experiencing, because we're seeing changes that are so humongous and not all for the better right now. I'm wondering when the enlightenment is going to come, if at all, at this point. You know, and that's very disappointing, and it can't. If I let it, that kind of energy can really engulf me, and I will not allow it to take over my life and bring me down. So, so that's why my isolation and going back into meditation and into looking at the positive, looking at what's the full part of the glass instead of the empty part of the glass is really important to me to continue to do over and over and over again, because it's not something you begin and end anywhere, you know.
Yes, I totally get it, you know. It's, yes, you know, we are so, this is part of the program that is still running in consciousness, you know, what you were talking about before, the linear, you know, like you do something and you expect a result, you do something, you expect a result. And that kind of creates an expectation that when you do the positive stuff, you expect the results immediately globally. And when it's not, you're so terribly disappointed, you know, that it didn't happen. And you know, for me, for example, I'm talking about myself, I can go into self-blame, critical self-judgment, you know, like I'm not, you know, it's like, you know, like, and that is not helping, you know. And the solution, you said it so beautifully, is like really go back into meditation and listen back, you know, reclaim the balance in the only space that we are. Who we really are is not that flesh, you know, we are much bigger than that. And come back into balance at that level. That is much more healing for the global than anything.
Right. At the same time, you know, my leader, my meditation leader, way back when I first started, used to say to us, you know, we're all dirty potatoes thrown into the same sack, and we're going to rub up against each other, and all the dirt is going to start coming out, and that's our karma, and we have to deal with it. We have to face it, because we tend to think, oh, it's somebody else's problem. But it's not. It's whatever we bring to the table that sooner or later we're going to have to look at. And cause and effect doesn't seem to be connected anymore. You know, cause and effect is really happening simultaneously. And we used to see that immediately. But now I look at people's lives and I see where they're at, especially with illness, what they have manifested, you know. And it's very hard to tell someone, you know, we are responsible for everything we create. Nobody wants to be responsible for the illness they've created, you know. So it has to be done in small increments of You know, this creates this and that creates that. Even in a world in which nobody accepts responsibility, it seems. And we have that here in the United States more so than I think in any other country, where things are being funneled from the top, where we're seeing a disconnection going on, a really huge disconnection. And so that a certain elite now is pushing through what they believe in, which is not necessarily for the good of all humankind. And that bothers me a great deal, because I believe that kindness and love and gentleness and positivity is really the way to go. You know, I don't see it coming from that particular group of people who are now in charge, and it makes it very hard to want to look at the news or to want to watch whatever is happening right now, realistically speaking. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's part of the mirror to wake up more people, you know, so they can see what's going on, you know. Perhaps it's an intention even, you know, to kind of awaken more people to have them see it in such a magnified way, you know, on the...
We used to talk about mass consciousness taking place, you know, like the 100th monkey.
Yeah.
Place in only 1/3 of the population. And if we had 1/3 of the population to believe in something like world peace, for example, that there would be world peace. It doesn't seem to be going in that direction. It doesn't seem like it. But maybe we're not seeing the whole picture yet, you know?
I don't think we see the whole picture yet, because the picture we see is what, you know, what is still distracting. And what is not talked about on the official channels.
Right.
There's a lot going on unofficially, that unless you are kind of really searching for the information, you don't know, you know. So if you look at CNN or whatever, you get to see, you know, the chaos and all that, you know. But if you look at some other news channels, you know, like Gaia has quite some amazing programs that I follow on a weekly basis, which kind of give you some other reading of what's going on, which I'm quite glad, because it helps me keep my sanity and my balance, you know, when I hear other things, you know, and it helps me to realize that, well, I'm not crazy, you know. There is so much we are not being told, really, you know, that keep us.
I stay away from the mainstream because it's not accurate, and
Exactly
doesn't reflect my moral values and ideals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you, Deborah? What do you think? Living in the same country I live in.
Well, it feels like being an island among all the chaos. And I do have a local group that I hook up with once a month that help me feel more grounded, because I know that there's more people than just myself who is feeling this chaos, and we can talk about it. And we certainly do have a lot of news that makes absolutely no sense. And you know, it's like, I live in a smaller community, and the newspaper is very small, and most of the time I spend the time reading the newspaper by flipping pages like this, and then I go, okay, well, I've done reading the newspaper, because there wasn't anything of any import there. And I don't watch television news at all.
Neither.
Because it doesn't really say what's going on. And I happened to be visiting with a neighbor the other day, and he was talking about what happened in Syria, and I completely missed that. You know, and until after he said something, and then there was this short interruption on television about the president speaking, and I thought that was the first time I'd ever heard this man speak as the president. And I'm going like, oh my gosh, really?
Must have been a shock to your system.
It was a total shock. And of course, you know, I had already made up my mind about him before.
Well, I just flip the channel when I see him come on.
Yeah. So it's like,
interrupt programming. That's the problem. They interrupt programming.
yeah.
What's going on in the more interesting channels. Do you ever watch the Rachel Maddow show?
No.
Oh,
Okay, excuse me. I just see that Fiona has popped in. Okay, I want to include you, Fiona. What happened with the time we've been on for an hour already? You know, there must be some kind of a time change confusion, you know. Because Harriet also said she wanted to join, and I don't know, you know, like it's 3 p.m. EST, you know. So anyway.
Fiona is still muted.
Yeah, you can presence yourself if you want to share, Fiona, you know, and I will send the recording of the first part. We are in the second part of our conversation right now. Just wanted to let you know and include you in the conversation because you just popped in. We were responding to an earlier conversation part. Okay, so.
Okay, well, I'll sort of zoom back out again, but I'll look forward to listening to the recording and catching up next time. So love to you all.
Yeah, well, we're not finished quite. You can, you know, I would like to hear where you're at and what's going on with your life, you know. So, you know,
Okay.
If you feel called to do so, you know.
Yeah.
You have a new haircut.
New haircut, yes. I've been stepping back out into the business world, you know, this sort of networking, and it's been, you know, doing all the technology things, and it's actually been I've had quite a positive response. I think I'm enjoying being back home in Wales, because I've been back for 2 years and it's taken quite a long time to settle back in. And yeah, life's pretty busy, but I feel as if yeah, I'm out there strutting my stuff, as they say. Yeah, so.
So you were also writing something the other day when I talked to you. You were contributing to a book project. Have you done that? Getting your voice out, you know, in publicly. Is that part of what you are at right now?
Yes, part of the network group. You know, it was the opportunity to do a chapter in a book about feel good, look great. And so that I did that. And I found that quite challenging, actually, because you know, it was only 2,000 words, and I literally just joined the network group and that opportunity arose. So yeah, so we'll see where that goes, and I feel as if I'm having more clarity and direction. You know, I'm not quite as overwhelmed as I was, but yeah, I'm sort of thinking that it's baby steps and it's not all going to be, I don't have to do it all today. So yeah, because you've been traveling as well, Eileen, haven't you?
A lot, yes. And what, you know, what I really can resonate with, you know, is how long it takes to settle back into an area when you've been living abroad, because you also lived abroad for a long time, you know, like you came back from Australia a couple of years ago, right? And you're coming back and it's no longer the same world, right? It's different. You definitely are different because you have experienced different things, and people who have not moved, they don't always relate to your new outlook of the world. When you have like an expatriate outlook, it's not always you're not always understood by people who have never moved, right? Who have never lived abroad. Have you had this experience yourself?
I find that people tend to be quite interested in my stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the network, I seem to be attracting people who have travelled, not necessarily lived abroad. And I'm very much into the Reiki again as well. And people are, I feel that people are a lot more open, and I can be more of I can be my authentic self, When I'm not my authentic self, I just stumble. So I've given that one up quite a long time ago. But I think I've got so much to share, really. I think that's always been the case. It's been able to feeling a bit overwhelmed and then realizing that this is my life's work. So I'm really tuning into the guidance to make sure that my ego doesn't get involved too much. That I'm checking in. So today that's what I've been doing. I've been checking in with making sure that doing some meditations, going for a walk in nature, and so I think it's a lot more of how I do when I do the inner work. Everything changes, and when I remember that, all is well.
Yeah, and you really speak into what we have been talking about a lot, how the work we do inside, the transformational work and the balancing work and the healing work we do on ourselves really has a reflection on the global, and it's not what you do has an impact.
Yeah.
And a resonance, that's kind of what has inspired me to reconnect to this group, and to pursue the conversation, because I realized that we really are spread across the world. Bridget, who is somewhere in the middle of the sea right now and doesn't have enough bandwidth to join us, but told us she will listen to the recording, is somewhere in the sea off New Zealand, Tongland Sea, she wrote. I'm not sure where that is. I would have to check it out, And we have Elena, who, it's very early in the morning for her. She could not join in Australia. And people in Honolulu, Elizabeth, that is now in Texas. So it really is, and many people in Europe, really, So it's there is a if we can create that new harmonic across the planet amongst ourselves, it will help anchor in that new energy. Because we're talking about the chaos and what needs to kind of shift, But this is really about anchoring in a new frequency, a new harmonic that is based on following our guidance, following love, really following, our authenticity. That's what kind of I'm getting from this kind of circle.
Yeah.
Put it when you, sorry.
No, that's okay. When you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, because Aline started the conversation with talking about, who was it that you were listening to who was talking about the...
Barbara Max Herbert, I was listening to a call a couple of Saturdays ago, Evolutionary Church, where she was referring to, the symphony of our unique self resonance, like everybody has a unique self, and coming together in a resonant field creates a new harmonic, creates like a new nervous system for the planet. And that really inspired me to reconnect to the circle, because I realized we are across the planet. We really are. And it really doesn't take that many people, if you come to think about it, but if we can hold that frequency, that resonance at different points of the world, we can contribute to that shift.
Right.
And that is really part of my, like my calling.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to add to that when an orchestra begins to play, they have to put their instruments in sync
Yes.
with each other. And so when you first hear an orchestra come together, it sounds chaotic. It sounds, pretty out of tune. And they're just tuning their instruments to play together. And then when they play together, it becomes one harmonious, beautiful whole.
Yes.
Until this planet learns to become one beautiful, harmonious whole, we're always going to have these holes, literally, everywhere until we can come together. And the Buddhist view was that 1/3 of the population to be aware of how to create world peace will create world peace eventually. But that doesn't seem to be happening right now. However, we can't see what's going to happen in the future. So, I think that it's time where we're tuning our instruments.
Yes, I like the way you say it. I think that's exactly it, and it's and really I want to speak to the importance of realizing that whatever we do on an individual basis in terms of our own self-healing and self-attuning ourselves, is contributing to that new harmonic. If I use Barbara's word, I didn't invent that word, but it really is inspiring, it's like a new harmonic for the planet, really.
Right.
Mm. So, if you would like to add something, otherwise we can slowly come to a conclusion. I don't know how long we want to go on, I have something in about 15 minutes, so I will have to end the conversation. It's actually going to end in 10 minutes. I just get the pop-up come up. Your free meeting will end in 10 minutes, so we are good. Okay.
Well, I was wondering if people would be interested in sharing, maybe in the Women's Wisdom Circle that you have created, Aline, whether individuals would be interested in sharing something they have written or something they have composed, even a piece of music, whatever, when we get together. Would that be inspirational?
Or, yeah, why not? Absolutely. Or what could also happen is because I did speak about maybe, and I'm not saying I'm in a position right now to do that immediately, because I'm loaded with stuff that I'm working on. But if we had like we had done it for the 30-day self-care healing we did a couple of years ago, we had a lot of kind of interaction going on during that 30 days. But if we had a Facebook page where we could share those things, and kind of expose our voices to the group and be witnessed in whatever we are contributing. That's another way. Or if you feel called to share one of your poems or whatever you feel shared, why not? By all means, that's part of...
You see, I'm not very big on Facebook. In fact, I just deleted my professional Facebook page because it was getting to be too much for me. I'm not big on spending time on Facebook. To me, there's just not enough human interaction, immediate human interaction. But these groups where we meet and we're all face to face like this, that I relate to, and that I appreciate and I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can relate to that, because I know I've not been doing much on Facebook myself, but I still think I should. Yeah. So if you want to say something to conclude, definitely, you know, like most likely I will not be able to conduct another one in 2 weeks at the new moon because I'll be in Costa Rica on a writing retreat. So if I get a chance, it will be at the next full moon when I'm in France. At that point, we'll, you know, unless there's all kinds of stuff happening in my life on the particular day of the full moon and I can't hold it, you know, I'll see around that, you know, if I can. I'll send an email out, you know, letting you know. So I appreciate you for having joined and your interest in continuing creating that resonant field.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. That's always a good feeling. Yes.
Yeah. Apologies for being late, but I'm glad we've reconnected, and lovely to see you all.
Thank you, Fiona. Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or
yes, it's still afternoon here. It's 4:17 p.m. here. Yeah. All right. So, Deborah, you wanted to add something?
I just want to thank you for gathering us all together again. It just feels like a uplifting time, especially around a full moon, because that's when a lot of people that I help are in the most chaos. So I like to have some grounding, and that's helpful. So thank you for reaching out to us.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Deborah, for being there. Yeah, appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen, for bringing us back together. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right. So see you on the next full moon, because I know the next new moon I will not be available. So have a great month, ladies. Okay.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.